Maybe a fourth. They're coming at him. He's made 6 and 7. Tom DeMarcus has made an 8th. Oh, wow. No.
Well, the episode you've been waiting for, here it is. SuperCoach365. Ryan and Tommy back. And tonight, Tommy, we're revealing our teams. I guess traditionally, I can say traditionally, we've only done it once, but our biggest episode of the year. So everyone's obviously looking forward to this. We've spoken a lot of positions and team previews, but tonight's the night. Let's get it done.
Yep, raring to go, mate. We speak for months, obviously, about everything, and it all comes down to this, really, what our team starts with at round 1. And 2 weeks out, obviously, still a trial match to go. There could be some injuries, but barring that, I think we're both pretty keen on what we have so far.
Yep, don't go anywhere. We'll get around to that very, very soon. Before that, let's chat some news, though, because some of this will obviously shape that conversation later tonight. I guess the big news this afternoon is Latrell Mitchell declared free to play from round 2. Originally, that was round 3, but they've been, the NRL has gone back and retrospectively counted that All-Stars fixture as a game that he's missing. So good news for Latrell and potentially good news for Latrell owners.
Yeah, definitely. I probably hadn't really thought of Latrell as much of an option to start the year, obviously missing the first 2 rounds, but now he's only missing the first week. I'd say the only negative still is the fact that he's coming back for round 2, but he's away to Melbourne, so it's not an easy fixture for him.
Yeah, of course, and I guess it takes a little bit of gloss off that round 3 game against the Roosters. South Sydney, of course, up against the old rivals, but good to have Latrell back a week early, and I think justice served in the end. So we'll look forward to that. I guess elsewhere on the weekend, some news around Ryan Papenhuyzen. Speaking of gun fullbacks, he may be missing for round 1, and that'll change the makeup of a lot of teams because I guess we've been on the Tedesco Papenhuyzen train for some time now, and that may not be the case for us going forward. We'll reveal it very soon. But if he's out for round 1, you've got to start asking questions of who is at your fullback slot.
Yeah, it's a big talking point going into the first round. Craig Bellamy sort of dropping a bomb before the game the other day saying that Paps may not be there for round 1. So, look, fingers crossed he is, and they're just kind of playing it up for the media. But yeah, if he's not there, going to have to do some serious rethinking.
I guess a little bit comes, with that as well. Some question marks around Nathan Cleary, and then obviously can we afford Tom Trbojevic? Reece Walsh out as well for round 1. Cameron Munster, Brandon Smith, Harry Grant. So some of these big names that you would have otherwise looked to, you just can't do it there. So interesting times ahead. And as we said, we'll get to our teams very soon. There's going to be a lot of interest, particularly around that fullback slot now that Latrell's back. So anyway, before we get into that, what about the West Tigers today announcing 5 captains? I mean, we've said our thoughts on the Tigers a couple of times here this year and particularly last year. I think this is just the shambles and just speaks to why the Tigers are in the place they're at.
Yeah, they're such a meme club, aren't they, the West Tigers? If you had said at the start of the season, one of the clubs will name 5 captains, I would have said West Tigers because it's just something the Tigers would do. Don't really understand it. I think if I was Madge or Tim Sheens, whoever's in charge, they would have picked maybe Adam Dewey as the captain going forward. He's obviously out for the first, possibly half of the season, so it does put him in a bit of a tight spot. But yeah, I don't understand 5 captains. Maybe to go with their 5 home grounds.
I like that. Yeah, I saw that on Twitter today. No, it's strange though. You mentioned Dewey there. I think the fact that he's out, what does it say for James Tarmow though? Because he was obviously brought there to bring some of that Penrith leadership and some grand final experience there with him. And I mean, he was there for 1 year and obviously played pretty poorly. So maybe they do look elsewhere. But the players they're looking to, Luke Brooks, he was almost out the door a couple of weeks ago as well. And Tyrone Peachey's just come in the door. So anyway, the West Tigers. That's the West Tigers for you.
Yeah, it's hard to fathom, really. Can't really think of any teams across history, successful teams who have had, multiple captains or more than 2 anyway. So yeah, I watched this space there. But yeah, hopefully Adam Dewey, when he comes back, he'll become the main leader at the club, I think.
Long term, he's their captain. If he wants to stick out there, that is. Elsewhere up in Brisbane, Billy Walters, news today via Ben Dobbin of Triple M. He's got good connections there at the club, and Pete Bedell as well, saying that Billy Walters will be the 5/8 for the Broncos. This caused a bit of a stir because, I came out on Instagram on our SuperCoach365. If you don't already follow it, you arced up, a couple of others arced up, and they were more than happy to tell me in the DMs that, maybe I was a bit harsh, but you seem to think that this is the right call for Brisbane with Walters at 6?
Look, I don't know. I don't think Billy Walters is a star, and I know you're going to say in a sec that he couldn't really cut it at the Tigers, which isn't a great sign, but I think you also need to look at the opposition that he's beating out for the 6 jersey. They've only got Tyson Gamble, Albert Kelly, Ezra Mam. These aren't big names. So while it's not a star appointment, he's not really beating a lot of quality players to get there.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing that's working in his favour or working against everyone else competing for that spot is it's just there's no real standout. And for the Broncos, and Adam Reynolds particularly, he's gone there. He's probably looking for some stability at 6, and 2 weeks out they don't really know who their 6 is. Or, yeah, I mean, I've had my thoughts on Billy Walters. I said to you yesterday, does he have a contract this year if his dad's not the coach at Brisbane? I mean, he was cut from the Storm. He couldn't cut it there, understandably, behind Munster and Hughes. I can cop that. But you go to the West Tigers and you can't make the 17. Yeah, anyway. Gamble was in the same boat a couple of years ago. He left the Tigers as well. So they're scraping the barrel, the Broncos. Anyway, Tommy, we spoke with Clarkey the other day about his takeaway points from the trials at the weekend. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. What stood out most for you? And I guess can we read into anything that we saw at the weekend going forward into this week and then also into round 1?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's just great to see footy. Thank God that Fox Sports have taken the initiative this year and showing all the trials, because couldn't believe the amount of Twitter talk and just everyone was getting into it. It was almost like the opening round. So it's great to see. I suppose it was takes in every game, wasn't there, really? A lot of good cheap options that we didn't know a lot about, and they played quite well. But overall, do you think perhaps we're looking too much into these trials? Because historically, trials haven't mattered too much. Just because they're on TV, does it mean they matter more?
Probably not. But, I mean, to your point about people caring a hell of a lot more, it's understandable when, you've got a bonus couple of rounds of footy to watch. And am I reading too much into it myself? Probably not. I think the injuries are the main thing, and obviously we saw Hayes Dunster go down, and it's sad that he's going to miss a lot of footy this year, and suspensions as well. Fui Mayano, the obvious one there, but Braden Trindle as well, going to miss a couple of weeks. So while we say they don't matter, these games, they kind of do, because they're impacting who's going to be there for round 1 and beyond. So anyway, there's 8 more games to get to this week, and looking forward to those. You can catch all those fixtures. We posted them this evening on our Instagram at SuperCoach365. You'll find all of them. Team lists aren't out as we record this, Tommy, but I guess we can sort of speak to the games anyway. And the first one kicks off Manly and the Raiders. Friday night, 6 p.m, a doubleheader up at Gosford. This one, the first on the card.
Yeah, well, Canberra was quite entertaining the other night. We played a fair few of our first grade players. I thought Savage was pretty good in the first half, and then Chance stood up in the second half. So the fullback role is going to be interesting. For Manly, Turbo looked pretty good in a short stint as well, didn't he?
He did. He only played, I think it was just on 40 minutes. And the fact that Paps is out, it's going to have people thinking that they need Turbo. Because, I mean, we saw only twice. It took him 2.5 minutes to have a try assist. And then he was sort of, I won't say quiet, but he was kept relatively under wraps for 38 minutes after that, until just on half-time where he lays on a try. And it was in typical Tom fashion of what we came to see last year. So if that's what he's producing again, I know it's against the West Tigers, but he looks in every bit the same mood to go on and have a similar year, if not even better year, to what we saw last year. And that's pretty scary.
Yeah, it was quite ominous. And I'm currently in the boat of not having him. Not to give too much away, but I don't have him in my team, and it is scary. You know that the percentage of people that do have him are going to get some big scores, and you're going to miss out on them. But 1.2 mil, it's a stiff ask.
Yep, steep price indeed, and obviously Garrick and DC looked pretty good the other night as well. So Manly doing Manly things already. They'll be trying to do it again this weekend. After that, though, the 8 p.m. kickoff, the Roosters and the Tigers. The Roosters played a pretty young team the other day, so what you say about can we read too much into trials? I don't think you can read anything into that result against the Raiders the other day, but the Tigers, they'll be looking to prove a point here with a real bounce back, because if they lose a couple of games on the trot before a ball's kicked, really, for round 1, they're going to be under a heap of pressure before round 1.
Yeah, they probably will be. Probably wouldn't be deserved from trial match form, but you just know that the media and their fans are going to be quickly up them. But yeah, the Roosters, they pretty much played nobody the other day. So I'm expecting to see a fair few big names, you'd think, this Friday night.
Yeah, I think we're expecting those teams later. I think we recorded Thursday last week and we had all those teams on hand. So maybe towards the back end of this week. Otherwise, though, a couple of winners, but one team won, one team had a draw. Saturday afternoon, the Warriors and the Titans. think, is this a preview for one of the early round clashes? I think these two teams meet pretty early inside the first 3 rounds. So I guess we could get a glimpse here of what that early season form looks like. This one at Redcliffe. So Saturday afternoon, with hoping we get a dry track. Sydney's copping a beating, maybe Redcliffe not. But the Warriors, did you like what you saw from the Warriors against the Storm?
Yeah, I thought they were quite promising. I'm pretty keen on them to start the year. They've got a nice, easy run, which a lot of people have spoken about. So I'd like to see, another good performance this weekend for the Titans. I don't know, is Dave Fafita a chance? I know he had that rib cartilage injury in the All-Stars, but I'm pretty sure he's back for round 1. I wouldn't mind seeing him rolled out on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm probably looking at him and obviously Campbell and Sexton to back up. They played some minutes the other night as well. And for the Warriors, Sean Johnson, I don't know if he'll play, but again, I know he's someone that you're keen on early. And then obviously that question mark around who plays 5'8" and fullback in Reece Walsh's early season absence. So we might get a couple of more answers there Saturday afternoon. Otherwise, the evening game, the twilight game, the Panthers and the Eels, this one back out at Panthers Stadium. So first time they'll play footy there since I think these two sides met last, was it June, July, before the competition was moved to Queensland. Obviously, Mitchell Moses missed that goal after full time. That would have broke Panthers' winning run. Anyway, besides that, this is a trial, but I guess the Battle of the West, we get an early glimpse here in week 2 of the trials.
Yeah, exactly right. It's been a long time since they've been at Penrith, so that'll be good to see. Obviously not going to be playing this weekend, but Nathan Cleary, have we heard any more about his status for round 1?
I haven't personally. I mean, I'm hoping he's there. I think he came out actually during the was it late last week before the trials, and he said he's a bad watcher, like he hates watching Penrith play. So if that's any indication that he'll be doing his utmost to be back there for round 1. Just on the Panthers playing back at home, I think we made a post a couple of weeks ago now on our Instagram about Panthers winning run at home. By the time they get to round 1, that first game obviously against the Seagulls, it would have been 955 days that they hadn't lost an NRL game at home. So don't tell me that this game means nothing to them. And they're going to want to keep that winning run at home intact, even though it is a trial game, of course. But they'll be playing hard, I think. And obviously Isaac Tago, probably the big name to come out, or not a big name, but the big result to come out for SuperCoaches from that win over the Sharks the other day.
Yeah, the Penrith backline is actually quite an interesting watch because there's a few spots there and a couple of cheapies. I thought Sean O'Sullivan the other day was pretty good as well. They're kind of talking him up as the Cleary replacement if Cleary can't make round 1.
Yeah, and obviously he was pretty good, and he's had that NRL experience before at the Warriors, and you liked him at the Warriors last year. Then they brought in Chad, and then I think Sauce went missing. So anyway, I don't know if he's not quite on Cleary's level, but neither is Kurt Falls, and he's probably the next in line behind O'Sullivan. So Penrith, that considered, I think Cleary will be doing everything to be back for round 1. And then probably the pick of the games this weekend, I guess going off tradition and heritage, would be the Charity Shield Saturday night. This one out at Mudgee. Great fixtures and great facilities out there in Mudgee. And do we get to see Latrell this week? I think we do.
Yeah, is he back? That's good if he is. It's news to me. But I did look at teams earlier. I forget if his name was there, but they did look pretty strong. I think Cameron Murray was not playing, but other than that, it was a pretty strong side. Jay Arrow in the back row. Not sure if the Dragons team is out either, but I think the Dragons, it's an important game for them. They wouldn't want to get it blown off the park before a ball is kicked this year.
Correction. Latrell's not there, unfortunately. I think he's all sore back, but Blake Taff will be there.
I didn't think so.
Jersey 1. And interestingly though, I should say, Dean Hawkins, jersey 14, Lachlan Ilias, jersey 7. So Hawkins was the 7 the other day, and I know they probably want to get some meters in Ilias's legs, but the fact that Hawkins retains that 14, it worries me because a lot of players, including myself to this point, will carry Taff at halfback behind a Cleary or a Hines or someone else. If they're going to preference Hawkins at 14, do you think, when Latrell's back and fit, or will that jersey go to Taff? Because it's going to wreak havoc for SuperCoaches.
Yeah, well, I'm in the same boat as you. I've got Taff there as my backup halfback. And look, I'm kind of just hoping that he gets a spot in the team after the trial is back because he's played a grand final. He was pretty good in the semi-final series last year. I think if he has a pretty good game round 1, I think he'll find a spot in the 17.
It's just like that bad lingering smell that's sitting there though, isn't it? Like, not so much for this week. I get it this week as a trial, but the fact that even when Taff and Ilias are both there, that they're still wanting to carry that utility for mine, I don't know, just concerns me a little bit, because if Ilias is to go down or vice versa, maybe they do call to Hawkins again. So anyway, watch that space for South. The Dragons, what do you make of the Dragons the other day? I thought Tyrell Sloan, not Tyrone. Tyrell Sloan was pretty good. We expected that from him, and from what we've seen from him already in the NRL, he's got all the makings of a first grader.
Yeah, they looked a different team when he was at fullback. I'm not sure why Cody Ramsey started there. I think it's an absolute no-brainer that Sloan will get that fullback jersey. And yeah, he really does look a good star of the future. Probably don't have high hopes for the Dragons this year, but I think he will be a standout. And will we see Zach Lomax this weekend? I think we will.
I don't know, mate. You're telling a story. We'll check on that while we look at the next game here. The Cowboys and the Broncos. This one, 4 games on Saturday. So this one, a 9 p.m. kickoff Sydney time. Cowboys and Broncos from Mackay. So 8 p.m. kickoff up in Queensland. Again, no team list handy for now, but the Cowboys, they did what they had to do the other day against I won't say depleted South, so it was definitely under strength. And the Broncos, they fought back to get a draw. Asako with that clutch conversion at the end. What does that do you think, for Asako going into this, I guess, his real last exhibition to show that he deserves a place in his team? Because otherwise, he probably would have been the odd man out, I think.
Yeah, look, I don't know if it was a good kick at the end, but I don't think it will really change much. I saw some whispers he might be looking at going to Para to fill in their holes in the back line. So, look, I don't know. I don't really think he's flavour of the month there at Brisbane. I think Selwyn Cobbo was training a fullback today, I read on Twitter.
Yeah, and that itself will excite super coaches as well. Just on Asako, I mean, we've said it a couple of times to each other that he's got all the talent in the world, just doesn't put it together consistently enough. But when he does, he could be anything.
I think he could be a good signing for someone. Maybe it's just not working at Brisbane. I don't know. But if someone like a Para wanted to pick him up, I honestly think he still has some good footy in him. He's on his day, like you say, he can be a dynamic player. He just has a few errors in his game.
Yeah. So if he can get some footy this year and then before he heads to Redcliffe. But I think it'd be a shame, especially for Redcliffe, the Dolphins, if he's not playing NRL this year, because you don't really want to carry someone that hasn't played top-line footy for 12 months. Anyway, the Storm and the Knights, Sunday evening, 5:45 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. This one at Mars Stadium at Ballarat. Storm and the Knights. Storm, I don't know what sort of team they'll roll out, but I think the thing that caught my eye most, and I said this to Clarkey the other day, was the amount of minutes and the intent that Cameron Munster showed when he was on the field. He looks like he really wants to prove a point.
Yeah, and we kind of talked him up in the off-season, didn't we? Well, there was a lot of media around him anyway, that he was going to be a real redemption story this year and try to get back to his best. And he put his best foot forward on Saturday. He looked really good for the Knights. I thought Ponga looked okay. They kind of looked how I thought they were, the Knights, a bit clunky in attack. Kurt Mann was probably quite involved, wasn't he?
Yeah, message you. And I know in the past we've sort of been back and forth on Mann about, is he good even? Is he worthy of an NRL spot? But I think he played something like 25 minutes yesterday and he had 15 possessions. So you take into account that half of the time they're on the field, he probably doesn't have the ball. The Knights don't have the ball. He's essentially had 15 touches in 12 minutes. So that says to me that he's almost going to be like the halfback. And they sort of need that from someone, don't they? Because between Clune and Clifford, both of them relatively new to the club, Mann will play a role there this year. So I'm actually starting to come around to the idea at Kurt Mann, even in the centres, 5'8", it doesn't matter. He's dual position. It's going to be a great option for super coaches.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of him until yesterday, but then his performance, I suppose it did catch the eye a little bit. I am thinking, what if his minutes, could they eat into Randall's minutes at 9 perhaps?
Yeah, it's a fair point. And I guess that was the question when Brayley first went down was, will it be Randall? Will it be Mann, obviously, or will it be someone else, a Phoenix Croston even? So I don't know. I think everyone's gone to Randall, and understandably so at the price, but maybe it's not as good as a buy that we may think it is. So anyway, we'll come to learn that very quickly in once the season kicks off. And the last game here, Sunday night, 7 p.m, Cronulla Sharks versus the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. This one back at Shark Park at Cronulla. So first time we're seeing footy back at the old Shark Park for some time. Obviously, Cronulla been away for 2 years, so good chance to see some footy back at their real home ground.
Yeah, exactly right. Pretty keen for this one. Hopefully we can see some of the Sharky stars. It was pretty much a reserve grade 10 the other day that they they threw out there. The Doggies were interesting last night. What did you make of their effort? I thought Dufty was quite good.
Yeah, Dufty did what he had to do. I mean, the thing with these trials is you would almost like to see the NRL players come on in the second half, because you get so excited to watch 80 minutes of footy, and really you watch the first 40 and then you may as well turn on to Married at First Sight, because you don't really get much in that second half. The Knights didn't score a point in the second half yesterday. So for mine, we said this the other day in our Knights preview. I think we said they averaged 17.9 points per game last year. How are they going to improve that this year? And already, I know it's a trial. Don't narc up, but already they've had one go at it this year and they scored 16. So I'm just saying, points will be hard to come for the Knights this year.
I'll ask you about the Bulldogs. You talk about the Knights. I know you hate the Knights this year, but come on, mate.
Sorry,
leave the Knights fans alone a little bit.
Let me answer your question. The Bulldogs, I thought they were okay. To be honest, I thought Pangai Jr. was probably a little bit disappointing. I think we probably were hoping to see a 7.5 and 8 out of 10. We probably got a 6. But I've said to anyone who's asked me today, am I cold on him? Am I off him? Am I going to drop him? Wait and see. I very may well. But to those who want to hold him, I'd say he didn't have Burton and he didn't have Naden there beside him. So he's probably trained the whole summer with those two, either inside and outside. And we didn't see that in his 35, 40 minutes. So that's what I took away from it anyway.
Yeah, there's lots more factors there. I don't think you can just sack someone off one trial game, really. Like, that's what I was saying before, going a little bit too deep at times. And I think he's probably just trying to overplay his hand a little bit in the absence of the bigger names. So, yeah, once Burton's there, I think you'll see a better Pangai.
I will say, though, if you need to sack him to get someone in by the name of Tom Trbojevic, I'm all for it. Anyway, Tommy, let's leave it there on, last week. This week, we'll obviously chat the fallout from all of those games, maybe late on Sunday night, maybe early next week once we sort of can digest it all. Between that and, between now and then, though, let's just plug this one more time. This is our SuperCoach365 group code, of course. We're doing this year. Join that group code. You see these numbers on your screen there, 576855. This is our overall group code. I think we're pushing either upwards of 700 or close enough to. Win $100, absolutely free to play. Just follow us on the social medias at SuperCoach365. Tommy, I know you're in that. The Doja Cats, your team. We're going to get to them very, very soon. But what are you making of the Cats this year? Can they go all the way in the overall comp?
Yeah, well, last year, I feel like I started slow and a couple of rookie errors cruel me. One week I didn't set a captain properly and that just screwed me over. So this year, a lot more attention to detail, no silly errors like that, and I think will put me in good stead.
I remember, and there was one week as well beside that, you captained Ryan Madison, and I think he got concussed. He was at the game against the Storm in the wet. I don't know, anyway. You've had some bad luck, and you still managed to finish, I think it was top 6, top 7%, so you could have done worse.
Yeah, it wasn't a horror show, but you were, I think, top 1, weren't you? So you'd be looking to go take it all the way this year, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, 50k would be nice, but a long way to go. We've got to get the team right first, so we'll get to that in just a moment. Before we do that, though, let's quickly throw to this break because I need to have a sip of water. I've been gibbering here already. Top Sport is proud to support us again in season 2022, and great to have them on board. So we'll be back after this break. Our team reveals. Don't go anywhere.
Having a bet on the racing this week?
Top this.
With Top Sport's best of the best multis, top odds are guaranteed. Place a best of the best multi during Saturday Metro meetings for the top fluck or dividend from the best 3 national totes. Plus, there's best of the best to win up to $5 grand too.
Top that. Download the app today. Top Sport. Feel the excitement.
Don't let the game play you. Stay in control. Gamble responsibly.
SuperCoach365 Podcast, the moment you've all been waiting for, really. I mean, as I said, Tommy, we've been talking teams and positional previews for probably close to 5-6 weeks now. But I guess the real reason why everyone's here is to hear our thoughts and our teams. So let's get straight into it. And we're going to start with your team here. We've already briefly mentioned them, the Doja Cats.
Yeah, well, I pretty much knew all off season I was going to put McInnes in my side. Whether it would be at hooker or second row was the real question. I went with hooker in the end. I think Harry Grant's absence in round 1 was a big factor in that. But yeah, I'm just keen on McInnes. I'm keen on the Sharks this year. My only, I suppose, point I'm scared about a little bit is if the injury has maybe maybe cruelled his minutes a little bit and we could see him go off this year. Hopefully not. If he's an 80-minute player, I really think he'll be close to a 70 to 80 point player every week. So I'm pretty confident on Cam McInnes.
Yeah, and every reason to be confident. Of course, we saw what he could do going back to 2020. Speaking of big fellas up front with big motors, how about these two, Payne Haas and Adam Fanua-Blake? Tell us about these two.
Yeah, well, Haas, I think he's a pick and stick. I think a lot of people are in the same boat. Last time I checked, it was over 50% ownership. Fanua-Blake, I only put him in the other day. Probably a little bit. Thought his performance on Saturday was good. I like the Warriors' starts of the year, as I've said a few times. So I'm keen to have two big scorers there. I think Fanua-Blake will play big minutes, and yeah, I'm pretty keen on both of those guys.
I can't help but see a pair of Sharks on your bench, Andrew Fifita and Jay Martin at the bottom dollar price.
Yeah, well, honestly, with a lot of these bench spots, they're going to change next Teamless Tuesday, because if I can find some cheapies playing, well, they'll be getting in the spots. Fifita, just a big name, and hopefully you can get a spot. I don't even know who Jay Martin is, to be honest with you. So he's just a placeholder waiting for someone to fill the void.
Now, this time last year, I know when we spoke about how we were going to put our teams together, you have historically favoured these bigger 80-minute players in the back row. Of course, David Fifita, Angus Crichton, two of those. But the name which stands out for me here is Wade Graham. You were big on him in our 2RF preview. He's made the team $354,000. He's got a point to prove in 2022, doesn't he, Wade Graham?
Yeah, it was just the pot I found, really. Looking back at his scores, probably in the past 4 to 5 years, he was generally averaging in the mid-50s. Last year was a write-off with injury. That is still a factor this year, let's be honest, with Wade. He's quite an injury-prone player, and he's had a lot of concussion as well. So you're kind of hoping that he can stay fit and on the field. But if he does, $354,000 is a pretty good price. As for Crichton and Fifita, I think their stats speak for themselves. Fifita was incredible last year with his scoring, and Crichton, you can just set your watch to him. He's incredible.
Yeah, and I know that you'll be hoping for much of the same from those two. And I guess given what we've seen already in the All-Stars from Fifita and historically from Crichton, you probably don't have too much to worry about there. Talk to me, though, because at their high price, you obviously come with an expectation that they're going to deliver week in, week out. Have you put this team together with the anticipation or the hope even that you're not going to have to trade these guys in and out or out and in? They're almost set and forget picks. And I guess going against the grain here and stacking a lot of money in the 2RF slot still, despite what we've seen last year with the rule changes and such.
Pretty much. Pick and stick mentality with those guys. I'm hoping that they're, averaging around the 70-point mark. There's no need to get rid of them. Obviously, I'm going to try and stockpile a lot of the trades for the Origin period, and maybe I'll have to make some tough decisions around then. But yeah, like you said, you'd be hoping for the first, 6 to 8 weeks, you won't be touching many of the guys we've just spoken about.
You can say exactly the same about the next bloke there. Let's shift down to your halfback here, Nathan Cleary, $949,000. You haven't been deterred by that massive price, but in saying that, you've paired him up with Blake Taaffe, halfback, fullback, dual position eligible. For me personally, I think this is going to be a very, very popular combination.
Yeah, it is. And I've said all along, really, I think if Cleary's fit, you need to have him because he's just so much better than the next best option at halfback. But obviously that little red symbol there next to his name about whether he will play or not is huge. If he's not there, I don't know. I might have to just sub him out and cop a trade when he gets back in. I don't know, because I don't really want to run Taaffe as my sole halfback.
Yeah, and I don't think many would, to be honest. And I guess you're paying that premium for Cleary on the assumption that he is there for round one. If he's not, though, talk to me about who comes into this team to partner Blake Taaffe, or do you shift Taaffe and you go for two mid-range options? I'm thinking straight away names which pop out. Nico Hines, Jerome Hughes, or maybe even it's you look to Manly's Daly Cherry Evans and his combination there at Manly and scoring points and such. Or do you go around those three all entirely and you go for someone like a Toby Sexton up at the Gold Coast Titans?
No, I probably was going to say Jerome Hughes for me. I think good fixture to start against the Tigers. Obviously, they're missing a few big names, but that could work in his favour because he may have to get more ball and control the team a little bit more. So, yeah, if Cleary isn't there, I'll probably pivot to Hines and then back to Cleary with the money, I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah, still a bit of a wait and see at this stage, isn't it? Let's move on to the 5'8" slot here, and obviously a cheap pick there with Lachlan Ilias. You'll see him at the backup slot. But I want to talk to you more about Sean Johnson. I know that you've been big on him so far in the preseason. You've been big on the Warriors as well. What is it about SJ that you like heading into round one?
Yeah, well, the big negative that you mentioned a few weeks ago was the goal kicking. That is big up in the air, and I really hope he does get the goal kicking. But Walsh has been striking them pretty well. He's not there round one, but discounting that, I'm still pretty keen on Sean Johnson. I thought last year he was good for the Sharks. Injury-ravaged season. If he can stay a little bit or have a little bit more luck this year, I'm pretty keen he can have a good shot at it. The first 3 games for the Warriors are very good, as a lot of people have alluded to. So I'm hoping he can start the season well. And if he can make me a little bit of money, I can make some money elsewhere. I'll probably look to move to Munster in the first few weeks after that.
Yeah, I think given the fact that Munster is out for round one, it certainly opens that position up. And obviously Cody Walker is very expensive, and we still don't know what that looks like for South Sydney without Adam Reynolds there. So going to someone at a pod play like a Sean Johnson here, $462,000, I think he could do far worse than SJ. You might get that to my 5/8 in just a moment's time. Let's move on to the CTWs here, because this is a Pandora's box. There is just so many options here, so much value that you could find. Now, you've picked out a couple of names here that are more common amongst some teams, but I want to start with Jesse Ramian there from the Sharks. That's certainly a pod play to start.
Yeah, well, I found this the hardest position this year. I usually do find it the hardest, but this year especially. I had Toa in my team for a long time, taking him out. I don't know, he freed up a lot of cash and he gave me a lot more options. Jesse Ramian, I think he's a bit of a diamond in the rough, 1% owned, really good base stats to the back end of last year. Keen on the Sharkies, as I've said a few times, so I'm happy with him. Staggs speaks for himself at the price. I think he has to be in most teams, really. And then you've got Targo and Penasini, who are both pretty much guaranteed spots in good sides. And one I'll mention as well, Oliver Gildart. This is a bit of a roughie as well. I don't really know much about him. He's coming from the English Super League, a bit of a rap on him. So kind of hoping he'd do something for me.
Yeah, I think the West Tigers will be hoping the same as well from Gildart. And obviously he's got that connection there with Jackson Hastings, who wasn't there at that trial last week. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just a bit of a wait and see with Gildart. $280,000 there. It gives you some leeway. You can either, downgrade to Joseph Sawali springs to mind, or a Taylor May there from the Penrith Panthers, who's currently not in your team, but I dare say that if he is there named for round one, he will very quickly make his way into your side. All right, Tommy, let's go to the back. James Tedesco and Ryan Pappenhausen, we see it there. Now, you've stuck with Pappenhausen, but there are some rumours swirling, like we said at the weekend, that he may not be fit for round one. How does that sway your thinking?
Yeah, well, that's the big question, isn't it? If Paps is out, it really throws a spanner in the works, because I'm not in the position to obviously get to a turbo. I've only got $2,000 left or something in my salary, so I might have to. I'm not sure who I move to, really. I haven't thought about that. Latrell would have been a good option, but he's out also. So yeah, options are going to be quite thin at fullback if Paps is out. But yeah, he's hoping I can run Teddy and Paps for the majority of the year in tandem.
You're not the only one that will be hoping to do that. Believe me, I think that's going to be the very popular pick, assuming Paps is fit, of course. And I guess when we put these teams together, we can only go off the latest information. And the latest, as we record this today, is that he is in a little bit of doubt. You mentioned Latrell there. He's obviously going to be popular if he was playing round one, but he's not. Reece Walsh, I think you could throw in the same basket. Where are we looking if Paps is out? You've obviously built this team with a budget in mind, so Turbo isn't there. But you can't even really afford to a Reece Walsh, or do you go as far down as a Will Kennedy or a Jaden Campbell even? Matt Duffy was okay at the Bulldogs last night.
Sorry, mate. I just think on the fullback situation, other options could be Ponga, but they're away to the Roosters round one. I don't think it's a very good fixture. Probably Clint Gutherson is maybe the next play. They're playing the Titans. He's a pretty consistent scorer. Maybe he could be the man to fill in while Paps is out.
It's funny, isn't it? And it's crazy. Like, even still then, while I'm trying to think on the fly as to who would come in that case. Clint Gutherson is just a name which continually seems to escape me, and yourself included. When we did our fullback previews, we sort of went around Gutherson, and then we got to the point where we realised, hey, Gutho's actually right up there with a great option, but just seems to not grab those wraps like the other ones. All right, wrapping this up quickly, just looking at your team, you've obviously built this and you like the way it looks at the moment, but if you can change something, what would that be?
Yeah, probably my CTW options. I'm very nervous about, like Tago and Penasini, yes, they're guaranteed spots in their team, you'd think, but they're not really noted scorers yet anyway. They could easily come out and get 30 each. So I really don't know there. I'm pretty set on my forwards. I think all of those should be producing pretty good scores. And obviously it's just going to come down to that teamless Tuesday. Hopefully there can be a lot of, absolute minimum price players who are on the bench or something that can just make us a little bit of money in the coming weeks.
Absolutely. Before we move on, I want to ask you, because I know originally you had Brian To'o in this team, as opposed to taking David Fafita out, you've taken out Brian. I want to ask why you've done that, because, you stack them up, they're similarly priced. Brian, for a centre wing option, has a great base. You've just favoured the 2RF.
He does, but I was looking at his scores a bit more in depth, and he did have a lot of tries last year. And look, obviously, Penrith Panthers, he's going to get a lot of tries playing on that left wing. But I don't know. I kind of just rather go with Fafita, just a gut feel sort of thing. I feel like he's probably less reliant on the team going well. He can do things himself. To'o obviously has a good base, but like you said, 2RF's a lot stronger position than CTW historically. So I'm just kind of going back to that.
Yeah, fair play. And obviously in years gone by, that's been the case. Last year, maybe not so much. So wait to see how that plays out in 2022. Let's get on to this. My team now. Great to, get your initial thoughts there, Tommy. And I'm sure that in a couple of weeks, or at the end of this week at least, after the NRL Trials, in the build-up to round one, that team may change a little bit. But for now, that's how it is. I like the look of it. It's hard to disagree with too much, and your pod players are going to play pretty well, I dare say. Let's get on to mine now. There we go. Bud's Battlers. Now, this is with you. You see it there now. I've gone cheap, and maybe we try not to look at the fullback slot, but it's obviously going to be the talking point at the end of this. But let's start at the hookers, I think, because you're going to be raising your eyebrows at this, and obviously one of them probably not too much of a surprise there in Chris Randall, but the other one there, Carl Lawton. Your initial thoughts on Carlos?
Yeah, not the name I was expecting. We did our hooker preview a couple of weeks ago and didn't even think of Carl Lawton, really. Can you please explain?
It's almost like I'm on trial here. Carl Lawton, I think for mine, I liked what I saw the other day in the trial. I think he had a couple of games throughout the origin period last year for Manly when they were missing some players, and he had some impact. He's come from the Warriors, and previous to that, the Titans. He has played hooker, so that's how he gets into that hooker slot. But he does, and I don't even know his scores, to be honest. I haven't looked at them, but going off what I've seen already, and I think he's going to be that left edge back row role in Schuster's absence. So give me 6 good weeks, Carl, and I'm going to be very, very happy. So again, I can't see his price there. There it is, 346,000. I don't know if he's going to play 80, but even if he plays 60 and can do something on that left edge, he's always going to be in the game with Turbo hovering around.
Yeah, look, honestly, when I saw Lawton, I thought he must be dabbling in drugs or something. But then I just did his scores last year when he was starting at 12 at second row, which he did for 5-6 games, and 3 scores above 75. So not too bad. He did score on a couple of those occasions, but still, yeah, if he can produce that, you're not looking too bad. But on the flip side, when you see the likes of Harry Grant, McInnes, hopefully, Reid Marnie, producing scores of 70 weekly, I don't know, you could be falling behind a little bit there, perhaps.
I think it'll make sense why I've picked Carl Lawton when we keep going here. In the front row slot, probably not too much different to you, Payne Haas there as well, but I've gone Paul Vaughan. Now, I've said don't throw the baby out with the bathwater around TPJ, but I was probably expecting a little bit more, and if he does play well, then maybe I shake things up again. But Paul Vaughan, much like Munster, I think he came out with a point to prove last night. And I know it's only a trial. Again, I'll keep coming back to that. But he is playing for a contract beyond this year. And for mine, we know what he can do on his best day. He's an origin player. So Paul Vaughan for mine there. Cheapies at this stage, sort of down that same train of thought. Max King for the Doggies. I thought he was pretty good last night as well. And Tepai Mairoa from the Melbourne Storm. So I think that's going to be 2 very popular cheapie picks there.
Yeah, popular cheapies. Payne Haas, we've already spoken about. Yeah, Paul Vaughan, I don't hate it at all. I went AFB, but I see the merit in Paul Vaughan. He was good. Even going back to his Raiders days, he's been a great player his whole career. at a new club, playing for a contract, like you said, you might get the best out of him.
And I don't know how he will combine with Marshall King or Beyond Diodo for that point, but I like Josh Cook out of dummy half last night. So if he can burst onto the scene, and again, it's easy to compare him to Damien Cook given the last names and coming from South Sydney, but he has worked with Damien. And we've seen in Origin before Damien Cook dishing Paul Vaughan for tries. So again, maybe I'm drawing a long bow there, but he is a noted try scorer going back a few seasons anyway, Paul Vaughan. So hoping to tap into a little bit of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He can be an attacking forward on his day, Paul Vaughan. I think this last few years he's kind of going a bit stale at the Dragons. So yeah, I think the change of scenery could be really good for him. Your halfback, you've gone with me, Nathan Cleary.
I have Cleary and Taff, so the same sort of thinking there. And my thinking around that is I need Cleary. I think you just need him because I don't know who the next best is. Probably DCE. But again, I think we need to just wind it back to the fact that Cleary is the best player. And if he is out for 1 week, then I've got that and I can cop that. If he is suddenly out for 2 or 3, then I probably made a mistake. But for mine, I'm happy to put the money into Cleary because much like I said with you and those second row forwards of yours, Fafita, Crichton, I don't see myself getting rid of Cleary at any stage. Maybe the Origin weeks aside.
No, he's going to be a hard player to remove. I did get a little bit ahead of myself there. The two RFs, let's take you through those instead. Fafita, Tupanua, and Tango, however you say it. Your thoughts there?
My thinking around this, and obviously we've spoken about Fafita and he's sort of the out-of-the-box 2RF, and much like I couldn't bring myself to build a team around Dot or Garrick, so I went to Fafita, much like you. I think a lot of people will. I haven't gone Crichton. I'd love to go Crichton, but you can't have them all. And for mine, Tupanua was the next best because I want some Roosters assets besides, I guess, the obvious one at fullback. I don't have one in this team. I've played away from Keary, who I was big on early, but the more I looked at it, the more I sort of went cold. Tupanua, I've said a couple of times, particularly around his draft value. I think he's going to be someone who slides, given people will look at his average from last year, but he played a hell of a lot of footy last year in the centres and on the wing at times as well. So if he can link up with Keary down that right side, you look at his first 3 scores from last season, they were huge.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
no, I was
sorry, go on.
keen. Sorry, mate. When you spoke about Tupanua a few weeks ago on our position podcast, I think it was, or when we spoke about the Roosters, I'm in agreement with you. Last year, he was a Mr. Fix-It for them. They had so many injuries most games, and he was having to play out in the wing position, like you said, or in the centre. So if he can have a more consistent run in jersey 11 or 12, I think you'll see some good scoring from him.
And Isaac Dungor, besides some other options there around the mid-range price, I just feel like, again, a lot of players will play him through the centres, which I get, and to be honest, I'd probably rather do that. But there's not really many 80-minute players at the 2RF slot around that price, 287,000. So I think I was big with you on Wade Graham when you brought it up. But that's an extra, $60,000 that I just couldn't find. On the bench, probably no surprises, Pierre Cura, Travojevic, Ben, and Jack Howarth of the Storm. So anyway, back to the halfback slot there. Sort of already went through that, Cleary and Taff. And the halves partner there, we've already spoken a little bit about him at the top, Kurt Mann.
Yeah, Kurt Mann. He's someone that, for me, he's almost like I can never pick him again. I don't know. I feel like he kind of burnt me a little bit last year. Mainly in draft, I had him, and he just produced some shocking games, I thought.
Yeah.
I do see the merit in it because, like last night, yes, against the Bulldogs in that trial match, he was quite involved, and I think that got a lot of people excited. And the Knights don't have a lot of great attacking options other than Ponga. So, yeah, maybe Kurt Mann does step up and become more of a focal point for.
Don't get me wrong. I hate the Knights, and to be fair, I don't really love Kurt Mann either. But he's there because he's dual. He can somehow do a role at 5'8" for me for a few weeks while Munster's out and maybe Cody's price is too much. I'd probably like to go SJ, but I don't think he kicks goals. So for mine, if I can get 50 out of Kurt Mann for a couple of weeks, maybe that's going to do me some good. And then if he is playing that sort of hands-on halfback sort of role as well, then he may get the odd attacking stat. For what it's worth, their first 3 games, I think they play inside the first 3. They play the Roosters round 1 and maybe the Panthers round 3. I'm realistic. He could be standing under the sticks for 40 minutes. Like, they could be conceding 40, 50 points in both of those games. So while I'm hoping for base, I might not get it. I could be looking very silly. Second 5'8", Lachlan Elias, probably no surprises there.
Yeah, I think what you said there about Man is right. You know, it's a risky play, but there could be a reward there. But like you said, they've got a tricky start and we're not too keen on the Knights. So I am surprised you've gone down that route, but I can see why you've done it in a minute.
Yeah, I guess otherwise, we'll move on to the centre wings here. And again, some questions around this. And I guess the obvious one there is you look at the team logos. There's 3 of the same logo and 3 of a team that I don't think I'm tipping to make the top 8 this year. And that's obviously the Broncos. Katoni Staggs, probably the obvious one. Jordan Pereira at the price I'm willing to give a go. And then you mentioned this in the news at the top, Tommy, about Selwyn Cobbo training at fullback today. That made my ears prick. So I've got him in as recent as this afternoon.
Yeah, Cobbo is probably a guy that if he is playing fullback, I may look to try and get him in my team perhaps in the last few days before the season starts, because I think he could be a good asset. I really like how he plays, and if he's playing fullback, he might get some good scores. Staggs, like we said. Pereira, I couldn't believe he's 29, Pereira. I didn't believe he was so old. He's been around for a while. Coates, what do you think of him? Obviously, last year he was an okay scorer when he scored tries, but he had no base stats. Do you think he could maybe change a little bit at Melbourne Storm?
I hope so. I mean, that's why I've picked him. 358,000. I think he'll be better once Paps is back. And I'm not saying he's Addo Carr-like, but he does have that potential on that left edge to just take advantage of the good work that's been done inside him. So we didn't have to wait too long to see that the other day against the Warriors. I think it was less than 5 minutes and he had a try with his first touch. So Coates for mine. I want some Storm assets. What have I, just looking at this team here, I don't think I have one. Particularly if Pappenhausen doesn't make my team, which he, spoiler alert, he's not there for round 1. For those listening who can't already see it. But yeah, Coates for mine. His base is the question. Again, blind Freddie can see he doesn't like taking hit-ups, but I want a try scorer, and they play the Tigers. He could bag a hat-trick in round 1.
Oh, yeah, he's that sort of player, I think, especially now playing for the Storm. He's always had that raw talent, and going from the Broncos to Storm is a massive lift, and he's going to be on the end of a great attacking play. So I can see why people have him in their team. I just went around him because of his lack of base, but it may not matter. He might be like an Addo Carr and score 4 tries.
Remember there was a point where base mattered with CTWs? I think last year we learned it doesn't. So for mine, again, I'm probably happy to go with Coates as opposed to... I looked at Lomax. I looked at Sloan even playing fullback, if he is to play fullback for the Dragons and get him in the centres. But I've gone with Coates. I think 350,000, he can do better than that at the Melbourne Storm. And then obviously on the bench, you've already mentioned Pereira that I've got there. I've got Taylor May and Paul Alamotti, just purely at the price. Alamotti, I don't know if he gets a run this year, but if he doesn't, I'm not too disappointed. And Taylor May, 252,000. We're hoping he gets that right wing spot, but again, that's a wait and see.
Yeah, a few wait and sees in the back line for me as well. All right, let's go to the fullback role, the most important slot in SuperCoach, I think.
And I laugh because it's probably a reveal to some and not so much a surprise to others who've been looking at it for the last 10 minutes. James Tedesco, captain for round 1 as it stands, and on the bench at a cool 1.2 million, Tom Trbojevic. I've spoken all summer saying you can't have him for round 1. But here's my thinking. This is purely on the news that Paps may be out, right? So if Paps is in, this team probably looks a hell of a lot different. But going off my gut feel from tonight, if Paps is out, then you got to go to Turbo. You can't have Latrell because he's not there for round 1. For mine personally, I can't have Walsh either for the same thinking. I can't bring myself to go to a Hines because I don't know what he's going to dish up at halfback. And my thinking was, if you look at who they play in each of the first 3 weeks, yes, Turbo has a tough couple of games against the Roosters and the Panthers, obviously. But would you be surprised if he put on 150, 170 against the Dogs in round 3 and suddenly he loses 100k, 50k maybe, when Hines is probably going to lose that anyway? So my thinking is I'm going to be happy to cop the price loss. I know he's losing money. Call me mad for losing money in 3 rounds. But I'd be worried for 3 weeks watching 240 minutes of football without having Tom Trbojevic. I just can't bring myself to do it.
It's fair enough. I know what you're saying. The Bulldogs point is a big one. The fact that he plays Bulldogs round 3, he may not even lose that much money if he has a big score. Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, Teddy and Turbo, it's incredible fullbacks to have. Yeah, but I can see straight away, where you've paid for it. You've paid for it with Carl Lawton. You've paid for it in Kurt Mann. But you're obviously willing to take that risk, and you're just hoping that those guys can jack some scores and kind of make up for them.
Yeah, again, and a lot of this will be dependent. Come to that Tuesday in a couple of weeks' time. If Carl Lawton's on the bench and Kurt Mann is not playing many minutes this week in a trial, or he doesn't look as good, then maybe I rip this apart. But again, going off what I've seen in the first week of the trials and for now, it only took 2 minutes for Tom Trbojevic to make an impact. And I can't sit through 240 minutes watching Tommy death riding him. I think I'm just going to try and bring up his scores here. Score against the Storm last year, round 21. We all thought that, that would be the big test for Tommy. He got an 87, so not his best score. But look at the weeks either side of that. A 226 against the Sharks and 179 against the Eels. The Eels, I think, were one of the better defensive teams last year. So when he's doing that to teams, I don't know. I'd be hesitant to not have him for 3 weeks.
It was ridiculous scoring, and I'm looking at it now as well. And he more regularly got over 100 than you got under easily. Like most weeks, he was over 100, over 200 3 times. But is he going to do that again, really? Like, it's pretty rare for someone to be in that sort of form 2 seasons in a row. Like, I hope he can for the sake of just watching him. But I just don't think he can produce that sort of level of scoring again, personally. But look, good luck to him.
No, again, it's the question mark. But would you rather find out the hard way and be burnt, and he comes out and churns out, 100, 150? And, I mean, he has to average 140 those first 3 weeks. If he gets a 90 and an 80 against the Panthers and the Roosters, and you're telling me he needs, I'm just doing some quick maths in my head, 90 plus 80 is 170. If he needs to then produce even if he gets 100 and he gets a 270 and he misses his BE by 50 points, again, I'm probably drawing some Rain Man shit in my head. I don't think he's losing as much money as we think he is. And yes, he will have a big BE going forward, but you got to weigh it up. How many weeks can you go without Turbo? Look at their run, Manly that is. After those first 4 weeks, it opens up something crazy, and I just feel if I go to Hines and he's not making money, or Paps if he's back, I'm just burning a trade either way. I'd just rather not do it.
Yeah, it sounds dramatic what I'm about to say, but I almost feel like whether or not you run Turbo, it could make or break your season, really, because your team here, if Turbo doesn't fire or he gets injured, like, you're in a world of pain. And on the flip side, if he's playing ridiculous and I don't have him in my team, well, I'm missing out on so many points. So it's quite a big decision at the start of the year, isn't it?
It is. I'm on my phone here, Tommy, so I might just ask you to look this up. But who do they play rounds 5, 6, 7, 8? If you can just take a minute. I'll just have a look here. I mean, looking at the rest of this squad, I'm not entirely happy. But what you say there about playing to win, this is a 17, a 25 squad that is playing to win. Tedesco, Trbojevic, Cleary, Fafita, Haas. They're 5 big names for mine that I think, and it's a big if the others can do a job around them, I think straight away in front of the pack I'm going to be. I think when we did our fullback preview, Tommy was about 8% owned. And I'd be interested to see what that looks like after this trial period, because if he comes out and brains it again this week, then maybe that's upwards of 10, 15 even, and people are ripping their teams apart to get Turbo in.
Yeah, and especially if Paps is out, that could also boost the ownership. Yeah, but your Seagulls fixtures, after the Dogs in round 3, you've got the Raiders round 4, the Knights round 5, that's a good game. The Titans round 6, the Sharkies in round 7, and then the Rabbitohs round 8. So it's not the easiest run, but I would say there's some good fixtures in there as well.
Yeah. Again, I keep coming back to how many weeks is it until I can get to Turbo if I don't start with him, and it's probably too many. And then if you don't have him by week 8, you're either cooked or you're in front. I don't know. I think I'd rather find out by having him and being burnt. than not having him and trying to play catch up. I just don't think that's possible. Anyway, Tommy, that's it for our team reveals. I need to have another drink because we've been talking too long here. But on the other side of this break, we're going to get to some of the listener questions. We'll wrap it up very soon after that.
Having a bet on sport this week? Top this.
Whether you're into cricket and curling or golf and greyhounds, Top Sport will let you on for plenty. And with literally hundreds of markets from your own backyard to the international stage, Top Sport has you well covered. So if you want to get the top odds every time, bet with Top Sport.
Top that. Download the app today. Top Sport. Feel the excitement.
Don't let the game play you. Stay in control. Gamble responsibly.
SuperCoach365 Podcast proudly brought to you again in season 2022 by topsport.com.au. Tommy, I text Tristan tonight. Tristan, of course, the director, CEO, Mr. Everything up there at Top Sport. And I said to him about our SuperCoach365 Futures Special. If you haven't already seen it, I'm not going to put the odds up on your screen tonight because they've just been blown out of the water and I didn't have time to make a new graphic, to be honest. They've changed every second day. Our bet originally was Storm to make the top 4, Roosters top 6, Sharks top 8, Knights to miss the 8. It opened $7, I think, about maybe 2.5 weeks ago. It's now into $4.20. Tristan tells me punters are on to win upwards of $100,000. So I don't know about you, but I think that could mean a little bit of commish for the boys if Tristan walks away and if the Knights somehow sneak into the top 8 because he's going to be a happy man. 100K punter stand to win. Or conversely, we've done him dirty and the punters are coming out on top.
Hoping conversely for us and for the punters. But yeah, no, it's incredible the amount of support. I must admit, $7 seemed like a gift to me. So I'm not surprised to see it come in at all, but come in that much, maybe a little bit of surprise. But yeah, cheer it on in our season 2022.
I should say this. I'm on the punters because we're on this as well. And we are very much cheering this multi-home this year, not only for ourselves personally, but for the punters, the listeners. And great to have you guys on board, and let's all ride this together over the course of the next 28 weeks. On that, Tommy, topsport.com.au, they've got a heap of other markets up, so if you aren't already a customer, I'd say go on, have a look at them. Lots of fun ones that you won't get anywhere else about ladder positions, team over and under a certain spot. So, for example, the Sharks, will they finish higher than 8.5 on the ladder or lower than that? You'll get heaps of value there. And I guess you can get all the other markets as well about where teams will finish top 4, top 8, miss the top 8. Anyway, check all that out, topsport.com.au, all under the rugby league market. We encourage you to do so responsibly if you are going to have a bet. Topsport.com.au. Thank you for your support again in season 2022. All right, Tommy, let's wrap this up. We've got a couple of questions here from the listeners. We said that we're going to do our team reveal tonight. A couple of talking points. The obvious one here, let's start with MaxMH_Priv. Cleary and Turbo, the best duo for this year. Going off what we've spoken about the last 58 minutes, would you say that they are the best duo?
I guess you'd have to. Last year's numbers speak for themselves. They were that far better than everyone else. It wasn't funny, but look, I think they'll probably be the best two players again, but I don't think by as far as they were last year. So look, I've taken a risk and left Turbo out. Ryan's gone with both of them. We'll see.
Funny. I mean, we've done this again. I've said this. We've done our previews and such in different episodes for the last 5-6 weeks. And I don't think we've had a question about Turbo until this week. I guess a serious one because it's like people haven't even considered him. Of the questions here, and there's plenty of them, but I'm just going to cherry pick. I think 50% of them would have a question about Turbo and Turbo and Cleary particularly because they're two players that everyone seems to want to get in. Ryan Duffy, another one of those who asks, is weaker forwards to run Turbo and Cleary a good idea? I mean, we've sort of gone that route. I've gone with Isaac Dungor. You've gone with Wade Graham. So we've sort of done that. You haven't obviously got Turbo, but you've done so to get players like Cleary and Fafita and Payne Haas and some of those other big names.
Yeah, I'll probably get Wade Graham's my only real cheap forward. I'd probably rather go cheaper in the backs, to be honest, and just hope that they can jag tries. I've always kind of been a fan of stacking the second row, and last year that didn't work. I'm kind of hoping this year it's a little bit back to normal, but yeah, I've gone probably cheaper in the CTWs than in the forwards. Speaking of,
Shazza.04 asks us, how many cheapies should we start with? Again, what's your definition of a cheapie, Thomas? Because for mine, it's probably someone who's $250 or less. maybe just a little bit over. Like Isaac Tungor, he's probably a cheapie bordering on mid-range, but Taylor May at 250, I'd say he's a cheapie. And anything less than that is probably a cheapie for mine.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty similar parameters to you. I've pretty much got all my reserves as cheapies, if that helps. Except for Ryan Pappenhausen, he's not a cheapie at 700,000. But yeah, other than that, Penasini and Tango, if you want to say he's a cheapie. But yeah, not that many in my starting team, but yeah, plenty on the bench.
Before we keep going, we've got 25 plus weeks of this. Can you give me an Isaac Tango?
Isaac Tango, Brian To'o.
Anyway, we'll just get a bit of consistency about that. Let's finish this up. We've been going for an hour. Last question here. Broncos 1 and 6 positions. We've mentioned Cobbo training at fullback today and Billy Walters, but are we sold on that? Again, I took a stance and said I think they should have Kelly for mine. He was their best half last year, and yes, he didn't beat a hot field, but what has he done wrong over the off-season? The 1 week he was away on rep duty, Walters starred at dummy half.
Yeah, look, like I said before, I don't think there's that many good options there. I think Cobbo would be good to watch at the start of the year at number 1 while Tessie New is out. I'm assuming Tessie New was leading the race there before he got injured. But yeah, at 6, I don't know. I think whoever they do pick, though, they should just try and stick, because last year they changed their halves every week and it couldn't have helped. This year you've got a strong halfback in Reynolds. I think you just need to have consistent 6 alongside him.
I mean, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here. I said Kelly should be their 6, but of the trial form I've seen and I guess past history considered, if you're not going Kelly, I think you go Ezra Mam. He's much of the unknown, but he looks, when he's been on the field, he looks the most dangerous of any player in that Broncos team for mine.
To be honest, 7 days ago, I'd never heard of Ezra Mam. I thought it was George Ezra, that singer. So I've got no idea. He did play pretty well the other night, and I keep saying Kelly and Gamble and Bolters aren't superstars, so he doesn't have to be that good to really make the team.
Could Asako play 6? He played a lot of his junior footy for the Sharks in the under-20s at 6. He was very good at 6, to be honest, hands on the ball. We've seen him. He's got a little bit of a kicking game. He can definitely hit a field goal. Is he a real option or not? Am I just going way left field here?
I don't think he's the worst option, honestly, because he has a bit of that X factor. If you've got a controlling halfback in Reynolds, someone like Asako could have been a bit of fun. I honestly think it makes no difference now, but I honestly think Milford and Reynolds would have been a good halves pairing. Yeah. So probably picked the wrong year to get rid of Milford, didn't they?
Yeah, fucking hell. Anyway, what could have been with Anthony Milford this year? Anyway, I mean, Tony Staggs played 6 for Tonga and they beat Australia when Australia were $1.001. So couple of options there, not traditional 5/8s, but options nonetheless. All right, Tommy, let's wrap this up. It's another big bumper episode. We're going to post these teams on our socials tomorrow. Well, probably today is listening to this on Wednesday. But massive episode and plenty to digest. Another big week of trials coming up.
A big week. I think we'll see probably more NRL talent this week than we did last. And yeah, keen to watch that, and hopefully my players don't get injured.
Between now and then, follow us at SuperCoach365, subscribe and turn your bell on YouTube. I need to go over lay down. It's been a big episode. This is Ryan and Tommy, SuperCoach365 Podcast. See you next time.